Hello, I am Matt Williamson. How's everyone doing? I hope well. Chilly around here, but hey, it is the middle of January. Here's the deal. So, usually, when DK and I started talking podcasts, he said, do 5 a week. And I'm like, cool. And then sometimes I do more. And you guys like them and he likes them and everybody's happy. But tomorrow, which I'm recording this Wednesday, Thursday I will not record anything. I have some family stuff that just is more important. You know, I love you guys, but it's more important. So I'm going to do this one, which is going to be Mailbag today. And then on Friday, I'll record something, and I'm open to ideas. I definitely want to at least mention the remaining playoff teams, or maybe I'll even take an angle of Steelers, what they are missing compared to those teams, or whatever. I'm up for ideas. And trust me, I am going to break down every UFA that the Steelers have, all the offseason stuff, what they should do at corner, what they should do at backup center, all that stuff. Well, I'll crush, trust me. Draft, of course. But that's the short-term plans, is Mailbag today, nothing recorded tomorrow, something recorded Friday for you guys over the weekend at least. All right, so some Mailbag questions today, some good ones. Gasper Akos asked, what do you think about Lou Anarumo? Wasn't their issue more rooted in lack of personnel than scheme? He's the recently let go defensive coordinator for the Bengals. I'd be very excited about that. And obviously we're operating under the assumption, and I don't know this yet, that the Steelers will make a change at defensive coordinator. Now, just 2 years ago, Anarumo was a head coaching candidate. Really innovative defense. A lot of different rotations, a lot of coverage stuff that's hard to deal with. Fair amount of blitz, a lot of unpredictability. And last year, or 2 years ago in free agency, they lost both safeties, namely Jesse Bates, who went to the Falcons. And frankly, the safeties they tried to replace him with, he couldn't do all the intellectual stuff with. So the Bengals credit this past offseason, they went back and got Von Bell, who was one of the ones he lost, brought him back, and Geno Stone, and got him some safeties that were not Bates, obviously, but at least you could run his scheme through the safety position intellectually, is I guess the best way I can put this. And it was a disaster. But to your point, it wasn't a disaster because they're blowing coverages left and right, or the scheme was unsound. And frankly, I was a little surprised that he got let go by the Bengals, but I bet that also came from ownership that didn't care about all that stuff and just said, we had like the worst defense in the league. You got to get rid of him, which is how this league works. And you're right. They just don't have good players on defense. They really don't. I mean, I've said this leading into both Bengals games this year with the Steelers, that I think, honestly, they're going to be in the market for 6 or 7 defensive starters. And even a couple of the guys that they drafted recently, the 2 defensive backs from Michigan, high, first round, second round, that those guys were injured for much of the year too. And the draft picks they've made on defense, they've made a lot of them, have not been hitting. So yeah, it would be a much different style of defense than what we saw. Great. It's not just based on, great players. I think Anarumo would be a wonderful fit, and you can kind of get him on the cheap because he shouldn't be out there. Along these lines, Jake Williams asked, how do you fix the problems on defense? Last night we saw the Rams defense record 9 sacks against a great offense. This is a defense where, I'll be honest, I probably haven't heard of 75% of the guys on the field. Talking about the Rams, I assume, Jake. Seems like they're getting a lot more with a lot less talent. Sure are. That Rams defense is really interesting too, because again, the 2023 season, when they opened the season, it was like Aaron Donald and the Pips. Like, who are these dudes? And very few household names. And since then, they've lost Donald, as you know. And Donald played Darnold, but they really built themselves a defensive line. Remarkably, they've used 4 high picks on defensive linemen and hit on all of them. But their back 7 is Akello Witherspoon, some retreads, some mid-round picks. And frankly, I think the Rams are one of the best coached teams in the league. And McVay might be the best coach in the league. I am really warming up to him, what he's doing and how they reinvent things and how they think outside the box. That being said, I don't think it's apples to apples. The Vikings O-line really struggled with blitz and didn't have good answers, and they have some injuries too. Their left tackle's their best player, Darisaw. He's been out. And frankly, Sam Darnold just kind of turned into a pumpkin and was really struggling to deal with pressure in any way, shape, or form, and held the ball too long. I tell you guys all the time, sacks are a quarterback stat as much as a protection stat, which worries me about Russell Wilson, side note. And in that game, Sam Darnold was the big problem. But to your point, Jake, when you scheme things up, it works. But not always, but when you scheme things up well, it works. And you can get a lot more out of a lot less. And I think it's safe to say that the Steelers have a lot more than the Rams, and we have not seen those type of performances, which does not reflect well on coaching, of course, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and ability to watch the games as they happen with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today and get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, Christopher Athari asks, what do you expect the O-line to look like next year? Guessing Moore and Daniels leave. Do we have two starting OTs good enough to win with? Is Jones' future on the inside? A lot to unpack there, but I absolutely think Daniels is gone and Moore is gone. Okay, get that out of the way. I think you bring back Herbig as your swing guy on the interior. Wouldn't be expensive. Brothers on the team. Well, again, we'll talk about the Steelers free agents. Now, Fautanu was interviewed the other day as kind of their exit speech, as a lot of these players were. And he is more than on track and ready to roll. And frankly, I've seen him around the facility. He doesn't have a boot on or any of that kind of stuff anymore. So I think there's no reservations for him. Mini camp, all that stuff, he'll be ready to rock. But from what I was told, someone asked him, are you playing right tackle or left tackle? And I guess he responded something along the lines of, well, I've been a right tackle since I've been here. I have no reason to think it'll be different. So I don't know how that works out, but I absolutely think it'll be Jones. The last two first-round picks are going to be your left tackle, right tackle. But I would sure like to tell those two soon which side they're on. Are you going to move Jones again? I got the impression that he preferred left, but he's played so much right now. And I do think that they probably need to find some kind of swing tackle that's at least been in the league. I don't have a great example, but someone that can play both sides, that's a veteran, that's a little bit of a fallback plan. But I think you're sinking and swimming with the two first-round picks at tackle. And Jones is still hard to count on, but he has shown glimpses, and the second half of the season was better than the first. Of course, we know Frazier's at center. I think McCormick has solidified himself at right guard, and at least for another year, Siamalu, I think, is your left guard. So I think you basically hope he doesn't fall off, and he didn't have a great year. And you hope your tackles are what you thought they were on draft day. I know there's a lot of hope involved there. I also don't know if there will be a line coach change or not. But I think that's the line you're looking at, and there is a lot of pedigree there. We'll see. I'm not super concerned, but I was definitely thought the line would be in a little bit better shape at this time if you would have asked me this 3 months ago, because losing the first round pick for that whole stretch, you just don't know. My man Lake Hogthrob asks, are we at the point in the NFL where you need to draft 2 wide receivers every draft with higher picks to make sure you have lower cost playmakers at the ready? Well, you're not going to take 2. I mean, if you take 1 every draft, like look at the Packers. That's a heck of a theory. And the Steelers over the years. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders and, all the way down, all the Juju and all the day 2 receivers they've used, or, 4th and 5th rounders as well. AB, of course, Pickens. Yeah, there's always, that's a good theory. That you just take a receiver not in the first round, but reasonably early, almost every year or every year. And if you were to do that, maybe you'd even like trade Pickens right now for a number 1 because you got 3 other guys that are sort of like him. You know what I mean? Like you can always trade those assets before you pay him. And it's an interesting way of doing things, but then you're also always very young there. Like, can these guys adjust on the fly and do veteran stuff? And good example for the Steelers, are they mature human beings that you can trust? Or a bunch of 23 and 24-year-olds that are a bunch of goofs, But on paper, I love the theory because there's such a wealth that comes out in the draft every year, and most of them hit to some degree, that if you took one reasonably high every year or close to it, 4 out of 5 years, 5 out of 6 years, I think you'd be in pretty good shape there in terms of playmakers at the cost you've spent for them, including salary cap space. Roscoe asks, and then again, we'll really talk about these names coming up, but I like where your head is at here, Roscoe. Should the Steelers' key free agent target be cornerback DJ Reed? And I think the answer is yes. Or someone very similar to him. It doesn't have to be DJ Reed. Who's DJ Reed, Matt? He is the Jets' number 2 corner, and a good one. Sauce is on the other side. DJ Reed has gotten a fair amount of targets, as you can imagine, over those couple years. He's going to be a free agent. He's not very old. He's quite possibly the top corner free agent on the market. He's 28. Carlton Davis is another one from the Lions. Chardavius Ward is 29. He's another one that's going to be on the open market. And my favorite is DJ Reed that you mentioned, and Byron Murphy, who's can play slot. He can play out. He's only 27, 6 interceptions this year for the Vikings, aggressive. So to your point, I would very much condone spending money on a true starting corner. Yeah, and that comes close to completing your defense. I'd still like to add a nose or a big defensive lineman. But we've talked about this a lot, and you'll get sick of me talking about it. But 2 real corners, and then Trice just kind of looming there. And we can worry about slot at some point in the draft. You can find that guy in the 4th round or whatever, or a safety that can play slot, whatever. To me, if you're going to go outside the organization and spend money, which I'm sure they will, it's going to be on an outside corner with man coverage capabilities and or a wide receiver that's a veteran, even though we just talked about draft one every year. So I think that's where their money of not current Steelers, quarterback aside, is going to end up going to some degree. So good name. You know what you're talking about. DJ Reed is definitely one that would be a wonderful addition and a major upgrade opposite Porter. All right, guys, take care. Talk to you in a couple days.